Marcus Chen wiped the grease from his hands and looked at the massive metal wall in front of him. The thing was bigger than any building he had ever seen. It stretched up into the darkness of the asteroid cave, disappearing beyond the reach of the work lights. "This is what you called me down here for?" Marcus asked Dr. Sarah Kim, the lead scientist on Kepler's Hope mining station. "I fixed starship engines, not ancient alien junk." Dr. Kim adjusted her glasses and pointed at the strange symbols carved into the metal surface. "We've been studying this for 3 weeks. Our best computers can't figure out what it's made of. The metal doesn't match anything in our databases. And look at these markings." Marcus stepped closer. The symbols looked almost familiar, like he had seen them somewhere before but couldn't remember where. They seemed to glow faintly in the artificial light. "The whole structure is sealed tight," Dr. Kim continued. "No doors, no windows, nothing. But our deep scans show there's something inside, something big." Marcus ran his hand along the smooth metal. It felt warm under his fingers, which was strange because the asteroid was cold as ice everywhere else. "What do you want me to do about it? I work on machines, not ancient puzzles." "That's exactly why we need you," Dr. Kim said. "Look here." She led him to a section where the metal seemed different. There were small grooves and patterns that looked almost like the kind of mechanical seals Marcus worked with every day. "These look like lock mechanisms, very advanced ones." Marcus knelt down and examined the patterns. His trained eye could see the way the pieces should fit together. It was like a puzzle, but one made by someone who understood machines the way he did. "These aren't alien," he said slowly. "I mean, they're old. Really old, but the way they're designed, it's almost like human engineering, just way more advanced." Dr. Kim raised an eyebrow. "That's impossible. Humans have only been in space for a few hundred years. This thing is millions of years old according to our dating." Marcus shrugged. He didn't know about dating or scientific stuff. He just knew machines. And these locks felt familiar. He pulled out his tools and started working on the first mechanism. The metal responded to his touch in ways that surprised him. It was almost like the locks wanted to be opened. As he worked, Marcus felt his nose starting to itch. The recycled air in the asteroid station always made his allergies act up. His grandmother used to say he was allergic to everything except hard work. He tried to ignore it, but the feeling got stronger. "The dust down here is terrible," he said, rubbing his nose. "Don't you people have air filters?" "We do, but the ventilation system hasn't been working right since we opened this chamber," Dr. Kim replied. "There's something about this place that interferes with our equipment." Marcus continued working on the lock mechanism. The pieces were starting to move, sliding into new positions as he manipulated them. He could feel that he was close to solving the puzzle. Just a few more adjustments and... The sneeze hit him without warning. It was one of those big, explosive sneezes that came from deep in his chest. He tried to turn away from his work, but he was too late. Tiny droplets from his sneeze splattered across the metal surface he had been working on. For a moment, nothing happened. Marcus reached for a cloth to wipe away the moisture, feeling embarrassed. "Sorry about that," he started to say. Then the metal began to glow. It started as a faint blue light where his sneeze had landed. The light spread outward like ripples in water, following the carved symbols and patterns. Within seconds, the entire wall was pulsing with soft blue energy. "What did you do?" Dr. Kim whispered, backing away from the wall. "I sneezed," Marcus said, also stepping back. "That's all I did. I just sneezed." The glow grew brighter. Deep inside the metal, they could hear something moving. Machinery was waking up after a very long sleep. The sound grew louder, and the ground began to vibrate under their feet. Then a voice spoke. It came from everywhere at once, filling the cave with words that made Marcus's spine tingle. The voice was deep and ancient, but it spoke in perfect English with an accent he couldn't place. Genetic marker confirmed. Biometric authentication complete. Welcome home, heir of the forge. The Dominion awaits your return. Marcus and Dr. Kim stared at each other in shock. The voice had spoken English, perfect English, but that was impossible. This structure was millions of years old, built long before humans had even developed language. The massive wall began to split down the middle, ancient gears and mechanisms, bigger than anything Marcus had ever seen, slowly ground into motion. Air hissed out from the opening, carrying with it a smell like ozone and something else. Something that reminded Marcus of home, though he couldn't explain why. "Run," Dr. Kim whispered. But Marcus couldn't move. He was staring at what lay beyond the opening wall. Inside, he could see corridors lit by the same blue glow. The walls were covered with symbols and patterns that looked almost familiar, and in the distance he could see shapes that might have been machines or sculptures or something else entirely. The voice spoke again, and this time it seemed to be speaking directly to him. "Systems online, awaiting instructions from the Forge Lord. Please proceed to the inner chamber for briefing and equipment initialization." "Forge Lord," Marcus said out loud. "I think you've got the wrong guy. I'm just a mechanic." "Negative," the voice replied immediately. "Genetic analysis confirms Forge Lord heritage. DNA patterns match archived templates. You carry the blood of the builders." Dr. Kim grabbed Marcus's arm. "We need to get out of here and call for help. This is way beyond anything we can handle." But Marcus found himself taking a step toward the opening instead of away from it. Something inside the ancient structure was calling to him. It felt like coming home after a long journey, even though he had never seen this place before in his life. "Just for a minute," he said. "I want to see what's in there." As they stepped through the opening, lights began turning on automatically, illuminating a vast chamber filled with technology that made their most advanced starships look like children's toys. And somewhere in the distance, something else was waking up. Something that had been waiting a very long time to meet the heir who had finally returned. Marcus walked deeper into the ancient structure, with Dr. Kim following close behind. The blue lights grew brighter as they moved, as if the place was coming alive just for them. The air smelled clean and fresh, better than anything on the mining station. "This is incredible," Dr. Kim whispered, scanning the walls with her handheld device. "The technology here is thousands of years ahead of anything we have, maybe more." Marcus wasn't paying attention to her words. He was following something he couldn't explain. It was like a pull in his chest, guiding him toward the center of the structure. Every step felt right, like he was walking down a path he had traveled many times before. The corridor opened into a huge, circular room. The ceiling was so high that the lights couldn't reach it. Around the walls, Marcus could see what looked like control panels covered in the same glowing symbols. But what drew his attention was the center of the room. There was a glass container there, big enough to hold a person. Inside, surrounded by soft blue mist, was a figure lying still as death. It looked almost human, but not quite. The skin was pale gray, and the person was taller and thinner than any human Marcus had ever seen. "Is it alive?" Dr. Kim asked, her voice echoing in the huge space. Before Marcus could answer, the voice spoke again. This time it seemed to come from the figure in the glass container. "Keeper Vorthak, activation sequence initiated. Biometric scan confirms presence of Forge Lord descendant. Beginning revival process." The mist inside the container began to swirl faster. Lights on the control panels around the room started blinking in complex patterns. Marcus could hear machinery humming deep beneath the floor. "We should leave," Dr. Kim said, grabbing Marcus's arm. "We don't know what we're dealing with here." But Marcus couldn't move. He was watching the figure in the container. Its chest had started to rise and fall. Whatever had been sleeping in there for who knows how long was waking up. The glass container began to open with a soft hiss. The blue mist flowed out and disappeared. The figure inside took a deep breath and opened its eyes. They were the brightest blue Marcus had ever seen, almost glowing in the dim light. The being sat up slowly, moving like someone who had been asleep for a very long time. When it saw Marcus, its strange eyes went wide with surprise and something that looked like joy. "Impossible," it said, in the same deep voice that had spoken before. "But the genetics do not lie." The being stood up carefully, climbing out of the container. It was at least 7 feet tall, wearing clothes made of material that shimmered like metal, but moved like cloth. To Marcus's surprise, the tall being dropped to one knee in front of him. "My lord," it said, "I am Keeper Vorthak, guardian of the archives. I have waited 4,700,000 years for your return." Marcus looked around the room, then back at the kneeling figure. "I think you've got the wrong guy. I'm nobody special, just a mechanic from Earth." Vorthak lifted his head. "Earth. Yes, the third seed world in the Sol system. One of our most successful hiding places." He stood up, towering over Marcus. "You are exactly who I have been waiting for, Marcus Chen, great-great-grandson of the Forge Lords, carrier of the Builder's blood." "That's impossible," Dr. Kim said, stepping forward. "Humans evolved on Earth. We have the fossil record to prove it." Vorthak turned to look at her, and his expression became sad. "Forgive me, learned one. But your fossil record shows only what we wanted you to find. The truth is much larger than your people have been allowed to remember." He gestured to the walls around them, and suddenly the symbols began moving, forming pictures that told a story. Marcus watched, amazed, as the glowing images showed vast cities among the stars, ships bigger than planets, and beings that looked almost human, ruling over a galaxy filled with different species. "Long ago, your people ruled the greatest empire the galaxy has ever known," Vorthak explained. "The Forge Dominion stretched across millions of worlds. Humans were the builders, the leaders, the ones who brought order to chaos and lifted other species to greatness." The images changed, showing something dark and terrible moving between the stars. Ships and planets disappeared into shadow, leaving nothing behind. "But an enemy came from beyond our galaxy. We called them the Devourers. They consumed everything, energy, matter, life itself. They turned our own technology against us, corrupting our greatest works." Marcus watched the pictures of the great human empire falling to the darkness. "What happened to everyone?" "Your leaders made the hardest choice possible," Vorthak said. "To save humanity, they scattered your people across the galaxy and wiped their memories. Hundreds of worlds were seeded with humans who believed they had evolved naturally. Earth was one of the most important because it was so far from the main trade routes." Dr. Kim shook her head. "That's impossible. You're talking about millions of years ago. Humans didn't exist then." "Humans did exist," Vorthak said gently, "but they chose to become something smaller so they could survive. Your DNA still carries the markers of your true heritage, the ability to build, to fix, to make impossible things work. These are gifts from your ancestors." Marcus looked at his hands, thinking about how machines always seemed to make sense to him. How he could fix things that other people couldn't even understand. "Why me? Why now?" Vorthak moved to one of the control panels and touched it. The room filled with new images, star charts showing the galaxy today. "Because the Devourers are stirring again. Our sensors have detected their scouts at the galaxy's edge. The hiding time is over. Your people must reclaim their heritage or everything will be lost." He turned back to Marcus. "You carry the genetic keys to awaken the sleeping systems. Your DNA is literally the password that can turn on the greatest technology ever built, but the choice must be yours." "What kind of choice?" Marcus asked. "The Forge left behind weapons, ships, factories, entire worlds just waiting for the right signal to wake up. You can activate them all and restore humanity to its proper place in the galaxy, but doing so will tell the Devourers exactly where we are. The war your ancestors tried to prevent will begin again. Marcus felt the weight of what Vorthak was saying. And if I don't? Then the Devourers will find us anyway, but we'll have no way to fight them. They've been growing stronger while we've been hiding. This time, they won't leave anything behind. Dr. Kim stepped closer. Marcus, you can't seriously be considering this. We need to contact Earth, get experts here, study all this carefully. There is no time, Vorthak said. The activation of this tomb has already sent signals across the galaxy. Every major power will know something has changed. Some will try to use you, others will try to stop you. And the Devourers will follow the signal home. Marcus looked around the ancient chamber, feeling the pull of machinery that wanted to obey him, technology that had been waiting millions of years for someone like him to wake it up. He was just a mechanic who fixed broken engines. How had he become responsible for the fate of the entire galaxy? Show me, he said finally. Show me what I need to know. 3 days after the tomb opened, everything changed for Marcus Chen and the crew of Kepler's Hope Station. The first sign of trouble came when Captain Rodriguez burst into the ancient chamber where Marcus was learning to use the forge technology. Her face was pale with worry. We've got problems, she said. Big ones. There are 12 alien ships heading our way, and they're not responding to our radio calls. Vorthak looked up from the control panel he was teaching Marcus to use. It has begun. Word of the awakening has spread. Marcus pulled his hand away from the glowing symbols on the panel. Over the past 3 days, he had learned that the ancient technology responded to his thoughts and emotions in ways that still amazed him. When he touched the controls, he could feel vast networks of machinery spread across the galaxy, all waiting for his commands. What kind of ships? Marcus asked. All different types, Captain Rodriguez replied. Our computer identified Zephyrian light cruisers, Krodan battle destroyers, and at least 3 vessels from the Nexus Collective. They're not coming here for a friendly visit. Dr. Kim looked worried. The Zephyrians rule the Eastern Spiral. The Krodan Empire controls most of the military shipping lanes. If they're all coming here, they want to control me, Marcus said quietly. He had been expecting this. Vorthak had warned him that the major alien powers wouldn't be happy about humanity's potential return to power. Over the past few days, Marcus had learned more about the galaxy than he had ever imagined. The aliens that currently ruled different regions had all built their civilizations on the ruins of the old human empire. They used technology they barely understood, technology that had originally been created by his ancestors. We need to evacuate the station, Captain Rodriguez said. Get everyone to the escape pods and hope we can reach a neutral world before those ships arrive. No, Marcus said firmly. If I run now, they'll just chase me. And there are bigger problems coming. As if to prove his point, Vorthak activated one of the wall displays. The image showed the edge of the galaxy, where space itself seemed to be bending and twisting. Dark shapes moved through the distortion, ships that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The Devourers have detected our signal, Vorthak explained. Their scout fleets are already moving into our galaxy. The main hive will follow within months. Captain Rodriguez stared at the display. What are those things? Death, Vorthak said simply. They consume everything. Energy, matter, life force itself. When they finish feeding on a star system, nothing remains but empty space. Marcus felt sick. How many ships are coming? Millions, Vorthak replied. The hive has been growing for 4 million years. They will not make the same mistakes they did in the last war. The station's alarm system began blaring. Captain Rodriguez pressed her comm device. What's happening up there? The alien ships just dropped out of hyperspace, came the reply. They're demanding to speak with whoever opened the tomb. Marcus took a deep breath. Tell them I'll meet with their representatives, but they come down here, not the other way around. Marcus, that's crazy, Dr. Kim protested. We don't know what they want. I know exactly what they want, Marcus said. They want to make sure I never become a threat to their power, or they want to use me as a weapon against their enemies. 2 hours later, the ancient chamber was filled with aliens. Marcus had never seen so many different species in one place. The Zephyrians looked like tall, graceful birds with silver feathers and large, intelligent eyes. The Krodan delegates were massive and reptilian, with thick armor plating instead of skin. The Nexus Collective had sent 3 different species, all of them looking worried. You claim to be the heir of an extinct species, said Ambassador Veltar of the Zephyrian Empire. His voice was musical, but cold. Even if this is true, any ancient claims to galactic territory are meaningless after millions of years. General Thok of the Krodan Empire stepped forward, his massive claws clicking on the metal floor. The boy is a security threat. Give him to us for questioning, and we will ensure he cannot destabilize galactic peace. Peace? Marcus almost laughed. You call this peace? Your people fight over trade routes and territory every day. You've turned the galaxy into a bunch of competing kingdoms, all fighting over scraps of technology you barely understand. The aliens looked uncomfortable. It was true that the current galactic civilization was built on incomplete knowledge of ancient technology. Most of their best devices were reverse-engineered from ruins they couldn't fully comprehend. Dr. Salix from the Nexus Collective stepped forward. She was small and fuzzy with large eyes that showed genuine concern. Young human, we understand this is difficult for you, but the galaxy has found stability. Changing things now could lead to terrible wars. Marcus gestured to the display showing the approaching Devourer scouts. You're going to have a terrible war anyway. At least this way, you'll have a chance to win it. The aliens turned to look at the display, and Marcus could see fear in all their eyes. The Devourers were a nightmare story that all species told their children, the ultimate evil that had once swept across the galaxy, destroying everything. These images could be fabricated, Ambassador Veltar said, but his voice lacked conviction. Could they fabricate this? Marcus asked. He pressed his hand to the control panel, and suddenly, the chamber filled with a new kind of light. The air itself seemed to hum with energy. Everyone could feel the power flowing through the ancient systems. I can activate technology that your people have been trying to understand for thousands of years, Marcus continued. I can turn on factories that will build ships better than anything in your fleets. I can wake up weapons that will make your best destroyers look like toys. General Thok raised his weapon. Then you are too dangerous to live. Before anyone could react, Vorthak moved. The ancient guardian was faster than anyone had expected. General Thok found himself held in the air by invisible forces, his weapon clattering to the floor. The air is under my protection, Vorthak said calmly, as are all beings within this sanctuary. Marcus stepped between the aliens and his guardian. Put him down, Vorthak. We're not going to solve this with threats. As General Thok was lowered to the ground, Marcus looked at each of the alien delegates. Here's the truth. The Devourers are coming whether you like it or not. Your current technology won't stop them. I've seen the records of the last war. Entire fleets just disappeared, swallowed by ships that could eat starlight itself. He paused, letting that sink in. But I can't activate the Forged Dominion's defenses alone. Every time I turn on one of the ancient systems, it sends out a signal that tells the Devourers exactly where we are. I need allies, not enemies. Dr. Salix looked thoughtful. What are you proposing? A partnership, Marcus said. Help me reactivate the ancient defenses gradually and safely. In return, I'll make sure that when this is over, There's still a place in the galaxy for all your people. Ambassador Veltar's feathers ruffled. And if we refuse? Marcus gestured again to the display showing the approaching darkness. Then we all die together when the Devourers arrive. But at least you'll have the satisfaction of knowing you maintained galactic stability right up until the end. The chamber fell silent as the aliens considered his words. Outside, more ships were arriving every hour. Some came seeking alliance, others planning conquest. And at the edge of the galaxy, the darkness continued to spread. Marcus knew he was running out of time to make an impossible choice. Activate humanity's heritage and risk everything. Or let the galaxy face the coming storm defenseless. The reports came in every hour, each one worse than the last. The Devourers had reached the outer colonies, and entire star systems were going dark. Admiral Chen of the Earth Defense Force, Marcus's own cousin, sent desperate messages describing ships that seemed to eat reality itself. "They're not just destroying planets," she said in her latest transmission. "They're making them cease to exist. Our weapons pass right through their hulls like they're not even there." Marcus stood in the command center of the ancient tomb, surrounded by alien delegates who looked more frightened with each report. The temporary alliance they had formed was falling apart as panic spread. "My fleet will not sacrifice itself for a lost cause," General Thok announced. "The Kroden Empire withdraws from this alliance." "Wait," Dr. Salix pleaded. "If we abandon each other now, we all die separately." But more alien ships were already leaving the system. The reality of facing the Devourers was too much for most species to handle. Soon only a handful of vessels remained, mostly smaller ships from worlds that had nowhere else to run. Marcus felt the weight of the galaxy pressing down on him. Every day he delayed, more people died. But every time he used the Forge technology, he sent signals that drew the Devourers closer. "There is another way," Vorthak said quietly. "But it is dangerous, and there is no turning back." Marcus looked at his guardian. Over the past weeks, he had learned to trust the ancient being's wisdom. "Tell me." Vorthak activated a star map that showed a system near the galaxy's core. "The Heart Forge, the central command station of the Old Dominion. From there, you could activate all the hidden systems at once instead of one at a time." "That sounds better than what we're doing now," Marcus said. "The Heart Forge requires a direct neural interface," Vorthak continued. "The Forge Lords of old designed it so that only someone with the proper genetic keys could access it. But the process changes you. You would no longer be entirely human." Dr. Kim, who had been listening quietly, stepped forward. "What kind of changes?" "The Heart Forge links the user's mind directly to every forge system in the galaxy. To handle that much information, the brain must be enhanced. The nervous system must be upgraded. The body becomes something more than baseline human, but also something less." Marcus thought about the people dying while he hesitated. "What are the risks?" "Some who attempted the connection died instantly. Others lost themselves in the vastness of the network and never returned. A few succeeded, but they were never the same afterward." "And if I don't do it?" Vorthak gestured to the latest reports. "The Devourers will reach the core worlds within 2 months. Without the full Forge network active, we cannot stop them." Marcus closed his eyes. He thought about his grandmother, who had raised him after his parents died in a mining accident. She had always told him that sometimes doing the right thing meant accepting consequences you couldn't control. "How do we get there?" he asked. The journey to the Heart Forge took 3 days using one of the ancient Forge ships that had awakened when Marcus first touched the tomb's controls. The ship was unlike anything he had ever experienced. It responded to his thoughts, traveling through space in ways that made conventional faster-than-light travel look primitive. Dr. Tech Kim and a small team of volunteers accompanied him, along with Vorthak and a few alien scientists who had decided to trust in humanity's return. Captain Rodriguez had wanted to come, but someone needed to coordinate the defense of the remaining colonies. The Heart Forge was hidden inside a binary star system, protected by energy shields that had kept it safe for millions of years. As their ship approached, Marcus could see the massive structure, a sphere large enough to hold Earth's moon, wrapped around both stars and drawing power from their fusion. "It's beautiful," Dr. Kim whispered, staring at the swirling patterns of energy that covered the sphere's surface. "It's alive," Marcus said, and he realized that was true. The Heart Forge was more than a machine. It was a living network that had been waiting for millions of years for someone like him to wake it up. The ship docked automatically, and Marcus found himself walking through corridors that seemed to reshape themselves as he moved. The Forge knew he was coming and was preparing itself for the connection. At the center of the sphere was a chamber filled with golden light. In the middle stood a chair that looked like it had been grown rather than built, surrounded by cables and neural interfaces that moved like living things. "The throne of the Forge Lords," Vorthak said reverently. "From here, your ancestors coordinated the activities of billions of worlds." Marcus approached the chair slowly. He could feel it calling to him, promising power beyond imagination. But he could also sense the danger. The neural connections would change him in ways he couldn't understand or control. "Are you sure about this?" Dr. Kim asked. Marcus thought about all the people counting on him. Not just humans, but every species in the galaxy that wanted to survive the coming darkness. "No," he said honestly. "But I'm going to do it anyway." He sat down in the chair, and immediately the neural cables began moving toward him. When they touched his skin, he felt a shock that ran through his entire body. Then the connection began. At first, Marcus could still feel his body in the chair, but gradually, his awareness expanded. He could sense the ancient factories hidden throughout the galaxy, shipyards that had been sleeping for eons, weapon platforms disguised as asteroids, entire worlds that were actually massive computers. The information was overwhelming. He could see through millions of sensors, control countless machines, access databases that contained the knowledge of entire civilizations, but the flood of data was too much for a normal human brain to handle. That's when the chair began changing him. Marcus felt his nervous system being rewired, his brain enhanced with synthetic components that allowed him to process the vast network. His body was strengthened and modified to survive the stress of the connection. With each change, he became less human and more something else. But he also became more capable. Through the network, he began activating systems across the galaxy. Automated factories started building new ships. Hidden weapon platforms came online. And on hundreds of worlds where humans had been planted millions of years ago, genetic triggers activated, awakening memories that had been sleeping in human DNA. On Earth, people suddenly remembered technologies their ancestors had built. On colony worlds, humans began displaying abilities they had never known they possessed. The scattered children of the Forge Dominion were waking up to their true heritage, but the activation sent massive signals across space, signals that the Devourers followed like a trail of breadcrumbs. Marcus could see them coming, millions of dark ships converging on the galaxy from all directions. The final battle was about to begin, and Marcus Chen, the mechanic from a mining station, had become something that was no longer entirely human. He was the voice of the Forge, the mind that could coordinate the defense of an entire galaxy. But the price of that power was higher than he had ever imagined. The war for the galaxy began at its edges and worked inward like a closing fist. Marcus, connected to the Heart Forge, watched through a million sensors as the Devourer fleets swept through the outer systems. His enhanced mind processed tactical data from thousands of battlefields simultaneously, coordinating defenses across half the galaxy. The awakened forge systems were powerful beyond imagination. Ancient shipyards produced new vessels at impossible speeds. Weapon platforms that had slept for millions of years came online and struck at the invaders. Human colonies that had rediscovered their heritage fought with technology that seemed like magic to their enemies. But the Devourers were stronger than they had been 4 million years ago. "They've learned from the last war," Admiral Chen reported from the defense of the Sol system. "Our weapons barely scratch them, and they're adapting to everything we throw at them." Marcus could see what she meant. The Devourer ships absorbed energy weapons and turned kinetic attacks into fuel for their advance. Worse, they were converting destroyed forge technology into more of themselves, growing stronger with every battle. "We're not winning," Dr. Kim said from her position aboard one of the command ships. "We're just slowing them down." But Marcus was learning something important. Through his connection to the vast forge network, he could study the Devourers in ways his ancestors never could. He watched them consume entire star systems, analyzed the way they moved and fought, and slowly began to understand what they really were. "They're not evil," he said suddenly, his enhanced voice echoing through every command center in the fleet. General Thok, who had returned when his own homeworld was threatened, made a sound of disbelief. "They destroy everything they touch." "No," Marcus said, his awareness expanding across the battlefield. "They're cleaning up." Through the forge sensors, Marcus could see the truth. The Devourers weren't random destroyers. They targeted systems that had been corrupted by war, civilizations that had fallen into chaos, technologies that had been used for destruction rather than creation. They were the galaxy's immune system, activated when things went too far wrong. The last war, Marcus realized. My ancestors weren't fighting an invasion. They were fighting a response to what the galaxy had become. Vorthak's voice came through the network. The Forge Dominion had grown too proud, too controlling. We imposed our will on every world, eliminated any species that disagreed with our vision. The galaxy itself called the Devourers to restore balance. Marcus felt a shock as the full truth hit him. And scattering humanity across the galaxy, hiding our memories, that wasn't just to save us. It was to let the galaxy heal without our interference. The battle was reaching its climax. The main Devourer hive, a structure larger than most solar systems, had entered the galaxy's core. Traditional warfare couldn't stop something that vast. Even the full power of the awakened forge systems wasn't enough, but Marcus had an idea that terrified him. "All fleets, fall back to minimum safe distance," he ordered. "I'm going to try something that's either going to save us all or destroy us all." Instead of fighting the Devourers, Marcus began reaching out to them through the forge network. It was like trying to shake hands with a hurricane, but his enhanced mind could handle the stress. Slowly, carefully, he made contact with the hive's controlling intelligence. What he found wasn't malice or hunger for destruction. It was purpose, ancient and absolute. The Devourers existed to prevent any single species from dominating the galaxy the way the old Forge Dominion had. They were guardians, protectors of cosmic balance. "You're right," Marcus said to the vast intelligence. "What we built before was wrong. We tried to control everything instead of helping it grow." The Devourer response came like a whisper in his mind. "Then why do you resist us, child of the Forge?" "Because you're going too far," Marcus replied. "You're destroying species that had nothing to do with the old empire. You're wiping out civilizations that were building something better." Through the connection, Marcus showed the Devourer intelligence what the galaxy had become in the millions of years since the Forge Dominion fell. He showed them the Zephyrian's poetry and art, the Krodan's sense of honor, the Nexus Collective's dedication to learning. He showed them humans who had rebuilt their civilization without conquering anyone, who used their rediscovered technology to help rather than dominate. "The galaxy has learned," Marcus said. "We all have. We don't need the old empire back. We need something new." For a moment, that lasted eternity, the Devourer intelligence considered his words. Around them, the battle had stopped as both sides waited to see what would happen. Then, the huge intelligence spoke again. "Show us." Marcus used the full power of the Forge network to create something that had never existed before. Instead of weapons or factories, he built a new kind of system. One designed to coordinate rather than control, to help rather than rule. The change rippled across the galaxy. Forge technology merged with Devourer energy, creating hybrid systems that could monitor galactic civilization and intervene only when necessary. The massive Devourer hive began transforming, becoming a guardian station that would watch over the galaxy's growth. On Earth and 1,000 other worlds, humans felt their enhanced memories settling into place. They remembered their heritage, but also learned from their mistakes. Instead of rebuilding the old empire, they took their place as coordinators and helpers, using their natural ability to make impossible things work. The other alien species found new purpose too. The Zephyrians became the galaxy's artists and philosophers. The Crodans took on the role of peacekeepers and protectors. The Nexus Collective became teachers and researchers. Each species contributed what they did best to a galactic civilization that was stronger for its diversity. Marcus, still connected to the Heartforge but no longer alone in the vast network, felt the change settling into place. He was different now, neither fully human nor something else, but something new. He would spend his life maintaining the balance between order and freedom, making sure the galaxy never again fell into the extremes that had called the Devourers in the first place. 6 months later, Marcus Chen stood in a workshop on Earth, repairing a farming robot for a local community. The robot's owners were amazed at how quickly he worked, how he seemed to understand exactly what each component needed. They didn't know that while his hands fixed their simple machine, his enhanced mind was simultaneously coordinating the construction of new cities on Mars, helping resolve a trade dispute between 3-star systems, and ensuring that a developing civilization in the Andromeda sector had the resources they needed to grow safely. Marcus smiled as he handed the repaired robot back to its grateful owners. He was still a mechanic, just like he had always been. The only difference was that now his workshop was an entire galaxy, and his job was to keep the greatest machine of all, civilization itself, running smoothly. Humanity had returned not as conquerors, but as the galaxy's handyman, fixing problems and building solutions wherever they were needed. It wasn't the destiny the old Forge Lords had planned, but it was exactly what the galaxy needed. And in the depths of space, the transformed Devourer stations watched and waited, guardians ensuring that the new balance would never be broken.